Hello everyone, do not attempt to adjust your screen. This is real. This is what many would call the Ultimate Collector's Series Batmobile from LEGO. Officially it's the 1989 Batmobile, the big version. They made a small version as well. And we're going to take a slightly closer look at it and then a closer look still. The set includes 3 exclusive minifigures and a nice stand for those to go on. We'll check these out more later. And interestingly, there is also a stand for the whole big car itself with this plaque on it, which just has a large single sticker. The stand acts as a turntable, so you can easily rotate this thing around, but ultimately it doesn't lift the car itself more than a handful of millimeters off the ground, and it's just that. Now, strictly speaking, this is roughly a 1/11th scale model compared to the movie props, but because the real Batmobile was such an enormous vehicle, this thing ends up looking more like a 1/8 scale class of model. Let's spend just a moment or 3 simply looking at this thing, though. It took 6.5 hours of actual building time, hands on bricks, to complete this, so it's a very serious build, a very involved build, but it's actually fairly straightforward to put together. The instructions were done in a fantastic way. It does not feel frustrating. It does not feel like you need to be an absolutely advanced builder to be able to assemble this, which is a great credit to the designer and also the team that works on instructions, because for something to be as complex as this is and yet still relatively easy to actually assemble is no easy feat, let me tell you. And it's amazing as you build this, some of the things that you start to put together you don't touch again for several hours. You know, there's just a tremendous amount of preparation that's done where you then later finally get to another sub-assembly that then plugs into something that you literally just haven't looked at or touched in so long that you almost forget about it, and it feels very satisfying to finally bring additional pieces together and to start to see the entire shape of the body come together. It's really done in stages. You don't build all the body at once. You build just small sections of it. Pretty much every single individual shape that you can make out on this is built separately. And it's not just studs on top construction, it's not just studs on the side construction, it's diagonal stuff too. For example, the front part of the front fenders here, yeah, there are some little gaps in there, and you know that can bother you if you're really looking at it closely. But when you look at the overall shape, the overall contours here, that is basically the right way to do it, to get that shape in a form that, again, can be actually assembled by regular people, and that will be ultimately fairly durable, something that you can hold on to, something that you can move around, and something that can be sold as a set. The inlet, the lower section of the main inlet for the main turbine engine here, has these angled sections on the sides. Might be a little bit difficult to see here just because everything is black on black. But again, with the diagonal building, it also has headlights down here, which are 1x1 bricks that are transparent yellow with white stickers behind them to cause them to be a little bit more visible. The main engine cover or bonnet area is very smooth, and there are a lot of areas of this entire build that have no studs visible whatsoever, but then there are some areas that have just a handful, and then there are some areas that have a bunch of studs. That may actually bug some folks who want more consistency. I kind of can get over that myself. I can look past it. I can see the studs as a texture element, but it is something that's worth pointing out that, you know, in an ideal world, you'd have consistency between those things. Here's another diagonally affixed section right here with just a very tiny gap between it and this very long wedge plate that's up on top. All these parts inside of here, some of them are attached with hinge-wise building. Some of them are just attached with regular studs on the side construction. There are some interesting Technic to brick-based system interfaces, including some parts that are attached upside down through Technic pieces. This is attached on either side. You can see it's just a tiny bit loose, but it's not bad at all. These huge side intakes are attached diagonally as well. Here's another diagonally attached whole sub-assembly for the front of this portion right here of essentially the rear fender, front edge of the rear fender. And then this section right here is another completely separate subassembly. It's actually studs facing towards you. Again, it's a little bit difficult to see because everything is black on black, but that's attached in a completely different way. So there are all these sub-assemblies, and it's really interesting. This up here, the back part of the roof, this is part of the scoop. That's attached diagonally, but not in the same way as these louvered elements back here. That's another sub-assembly that goes together. Trying to get a little bit more of the glare to come in here so that you can see things a little bit better. This is one other sub-assembly that is attached at a different angle. So this is actually attached at a slightly steeper angle, steeper to vertical, than the section just inside of it. The bat wing-like vertical stabilizer structures are built in 3 different ways. So the majority of what you're seeing there is just studs on top, standard construction, but then the side ridges are added on with studs on the side construction. And then these are upside down. These arches, partial arches, are actually upside down completely. And this is a separate sub-assembly that's attached horizontally using rows of clips. So there's a row of clips right there, and there's another one a little bit further inboard here. If there's one thing I feel I have a right to complain about regarding the look of the whole Batmobile from the outside, it's that looking at it from the back, which is a good place to look at it. I mean, you want to see the engine outlet there, and you want to see that aggressive, about to get away from you look, but you do get to see that Technic brick inside of there, that light gray one, which does stand out a little bit more than everything else. And it stands out because they did such a good job of hiding all unnecessary elements everywhere else. I guess this is as good of a time as any to show you the action feature that's built into this exhaust cone right here. Unfortunately, there's no light brick inside or anything. That would have been really cool if you could push this in and maybe have it stay in place, have something you could bring to lock it and have it light up. That would have been absolutely deluxe, but we don't get that. Instead, you rotate this and it feels a little loose, and you might worry that something's going to break in there, but it doesn't. There's just a long series of axles that transfer your movement quite far forward on this model. I'm going to turn this counterclockwise and look up there. Just watch. Oh, there we go. Some stuff pops out, some stuff pops up. So here I'll do it again, and you'll see those louvered sections start to bend a bit, and then eventually they just pop off completely, and the guns come out. Now these are supposed to be discarded entirely. That's actually what happens in the movie. These are just discardable covers. They don't really do all that much. They just hide the weapons that are inside, and these have gunmetal gray barrels and one sticker for each. One of the other major things that moves here is the canopy, which does slide forward as it's supposed to. You actually want to lift it up just a little bit to give it a little extra clearance, and then it will slide forward very nicely. Most of this is a single brand new piece that was made specifically for this set. It's a printed part, so they've got just a little bit of an outline going around the outside. It's very subtle, and again, black on black on trans black. I mean, there's just not much to see there, and you really aren't able to see light through this unless you're perfectly looking at it from the side and you've got a bright light behind it. But ultimately, this does what you want it to do. It has that realistic opening movement, and that gives you access just barely to the interior. There you can start to see that there are 2 sculpted up seats in dark gray. Ideally, they should have been black, but this does stand out a little bit better, I suppose. But they're built up nicely, and there are quite a few stickers used in the interior as well. I'm personally a big fan of the shifter cluster here because they've got 3 different levers, and it's one of the more detailed versions of that type of thing that LEGO has done to date, I think. It's just a shame that you're not able to see all that well inside of there. And that's not LEGO's fault at all. I mean, the Batmobile itself, again, is huge, but the interior is very cramped, and it's really down in there, One last thing while we're looking at and talking about the interior. It's got a tiny, tiny little steering wheel, and it's attached with, again, a fairly long Technic axle inside of there, so it's not very well located. But the good news is that this is attached. Look at the front wheels up there. I'm going to try to rotate this thing. I might need to get it off my surface just a little bit because it doesn't have any mechanical advantage working for it, but it is actually connected. There's a mechanism in there, and the wheels do turn. It's much, much easier to just grab the wheels themselves and turn them, but you can at least see the steering wheel move just barely inside when you do that. Here's a look at the whole thing roughly from above to mostly give you a slightly better idea of its overall shape, its overall proportions, and also the relative portions of tiled off and smooth areas compared to studded areas. And there's what it looks like from the underside. So this does not use many Technic lift arms. There are some that are used to clamp parts together, but the Technic stuff mostly goes between connectors, pins and axles and such, and Technic bricks. I personally am very happy to still have these tumbler tires in production, but I do want to point out here that there is no working suspension front or rear. Although there are a fair number of stickers used in this set, the hubcap pieces, the 2x2 round tiles there, of which there are 4, are prints. And then also these little panels here, the 2x2 just regular square tile right there, that is a print. I mean, there are 2 of those in total in the set. I'm very surprised they made that into a printed piece. It's not really necessary. I mean, if you're going to go prints, go prints. Otherwise, that's a sticker right there, so I don't get it. But hey, I'll take it. Moving on to the figures, this stand that they come on is pretty perfect. It's properly themed. It represents the edge of a roof line of some building in Gotham City, and they've even got gargoyles on there. Each one is identical and looks like it's got some wings back here, and the head is just facing straight down with a couple of horns coming out the top. So, this is a very nice and appropriate way, I think, to display these 3 exclusive figs. Here's Vicky Vale with the sand green color that's actually pretty appropriate. I mean, that particular outfit was maybe slightly closer to teal, like there's a little bit of blue in it, but no, this totally captures the look, I think, of this version of this character. She's got a camera there, of course. And yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty well done figure, certainly collectible. And she does have an alternate face, which I think is okay, but I think that a startled face would have been more appropriate for an alternate for this one. Jack Nicholson Joker here looks pretty dang good, the face especially. And he comes with a revolver. Unfortunately, there's no sort of attempt to extend the barrel of that. It would have been nice to have something there, but probably would have required a different piece or maybe something brick built. I don't know. This works out okay for me. I'm so glad that they did get a pretty decent plaid print on the legs there. Also goes through the hip piece pretty well. Yeah, it's some good level of detail, and it just looks right. Unfortunately, you can't do an alternate face for a character that has a hat like this, so I'm okay with that. Not a lot of detail on the back here, but overall, this is pretty decently well done. It looks a little bit more slim than the character, in that movie, but overall, I'm pretty happy with this. And there's just a little bit more detail to be seen at the top of the head. This is Michael Keaton Batman, and this one really surprised me pleasantly when they first unveiled it, in that it has a brand new, unique piece for the cape and cowl, just for this particular depiction of Batman. I never would have expected LEGO to do this. They've got 2 major versions of Batman cowl that they use for so many different versions. One of them is relatively recent, but to do something entirely new just for this rendition, I think is kind of deluxe. This is a slightly soft, it's like a stiff rubber kind of feel, the whole cape piece, so it holds its position, which is cool, and it has a really nice texture on it. That looks good, and it has the print on the front, and it's got the super wide stiff neck, and it just totally makes sense. Got a regular black batarang there, and I think that that pistol piece, the Overwatch blaster piece, makes for a convincing grappling hook gun, just with no grapple in it, but I think it's fine as it is. Just everything about this looks good to me in this form. But when I take the whole cowl piece off, I do notice that the printing for the headband, which gives us the white of the eyes when the cowl is on, is a bit thin. Like, I don't know, I think it looks a little bit better on camera here than it does to me in person. It's just not nearly opaque enough, and it would be much more striking, even from the outside, if they did do it in a more opaque way. So we're we're missing something there because of a bit of a quality issue that's very consistent these days, unfortunately consistent. But the design of that torso is excellent, and I love the modern printed gold color that Lego uses. It's just a really good gold in my opinion. It just has a good hue, and yeah, this is definitely going to be a long-term keep sort of minifig. Of leftover pieces, there are many, but most of them aren't that special, the exceptions being, of course, this non-ridged train wheel piece, just because it comes in a pack of 3 wheels, 1 with no ridge on it, 2 with ridges, and they use the 2 that have the extra ridge on the inside that is used for the intake on the front of the Batmobile. And then right here is a 1x1 round printed tile, which is the same one that was used on the steering wheel in the center of it. And then this is a look at the sticker sheets, just so you get a better idea of how many stickers, the volume of stickers used in this set overall. The price to part ratio for this set looks really good at first glance, and thankfully it continues to hold up under closer inspection, because ultimately this set does not have a whole lot of tiny little pieces, but it does have more than its share of medium to large sized pieces, including some specialized ones, some specialized prints, this huge canopy piece, which is always going to be a more expensive thing, big wheels, big tires. The amount of stuff that you get here ultimately for the price, I think, is actually very good, and it's solid. I think that this is going to stand the test of time. It will continue to be something that people who want this will continue to want for many, many years into the future. It looks good. People who are not fans of Lego can really appreciate this, and from any reasonable kind of distance, at first glance, you will never think that it's made of Lego unless you're already very familiar with Lego. Just an average person looking at this from across the room will be like, oh, let me take a look at your Batmobile model, up more closely. Where'd you get that? And then they get a closer wait. This entire thing is made of Lego, and then to have the concept of it actually being built using standard building techniques, nothing wonky, nothing weird, nothing glued, of course. It's good stuff. This is really, really well done. It's something that I think most people can appreciate just looking at it from the outside, but if you actually build it, you'll have so much more appreciation for it, so much more respect for the designer and the design team ultimately that worked together to make this into a packageable set. Again, just the sub-assemblies and how things come together after hours of work as you build this just gives you the slightest hint of the work and the care that went into designing this. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, because it really needs to be stressed, and most people will never fully understand this, myself included even, how difficult it is to make something that not only is large and looks very good, following a pattern of something that exists in real life where you either get it right or you get it wrong, Not only that, but making it a packageable set, making it something that can be built from regular instructions. That's not just an additional level of complexity. That's almost an order of, like a half an order of magnitude additional complexity to making something in the end. Because you can sculpt something like this. A lot of people can sculpt something like this with the wheels that steer and everything, the tires that turn and the canopy that can be opened. But to put it into a form where anyone can come along and just build it without having to have techniques where you essentially give yourself 3 hands or 4 hands, and you're doing weird stuff and prying things together and wedging things together, needing to get help, having things that are going to fall off easily, that need to be set up just right. I mean, even the most tricky things on this, like some of these diagonal bits here that are studs facing out, the tolerances around the edges are very, very tight. But I had no trouble putting that on. I was actually surprised by it. I expected to encounter more difficulty along the way multiple times, and it just didn't. It's just so smart. I can't imagine how many times this entire thing was built and rebuilt and rebuilt and redesigned and rebuilt, probably even to the point where the original designer thought they were done and then had to go back and redo some things because of the requirements of the instructions team. So yeah, I'm gushing, and it's absolutely deserved here. I bought this thing at retail. This was not sponsored for me. I'm not even particularly a Batman fan myself. I like this Batmobile. I think this is the ultimate Batmobile in universe, just to me personally. Totally just biased there from age and whatever. And I'm liking the look of the thing, but I just really respect the work that has been done here. As a Lego fan, I have to give credit where credit is due, and a lot is deserved here. If you would like to see the entire 6.5 hour build of this in real time, you can. It's over on my Pure Builds channel. Check that out if you'd like to. But if you don't have 6.5 hours, well, I mean, depending upon the situation, when you're watching this video, you may have 6.5 hours to watch something, or at least to have it on in the background while you do something else. But if you'd prefer a dramatically sped up version that's more like 40 minutes long, I've got a speed build, which is actually my most sped up speed build, normal form of speed build that I've done over on my regular JANG Builds It channel. So you can check that out if you prefer. Got all new music that I brought in, tried to do it all nice. And that is that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this look at this pretty impressive set. I will talk to you again as soon as I can.